So we seem to know quite well what we mean when we say fear. We seem to understand that quite well. Most people would probably be able to articulate, oh, yeah, like when I'm afraid, then I notice that I have anxiety, or when I'm afraid, my heart is racing, or when I'm afraid, my mind is racing, or when I'm afraid, I feel overwhelmed, or, I feel gut punched, or I feel shaky, or generally speaking, we seem to have a good understanding of what an embodied sense of fear is, right? And that's our alarm system sending signals to our, within our biology so that we pay attention, right? Those signals are intended for us to place our focus externally because we're scanning for the threat. Right. And so that's that whole queuing up system, that whole alarm system that is operating below conscious awareness. We're not telling it to do that, right? It's responding to cues within its environment. And that's what we mean when we say that our nervous system is like our personal Wi-Fi system, or it's our surveillance system. It is an energetic system that is sending and receiving bits of information, at nanospeed, because we live within a field of energy and information, and we are a field of energy and information, and our nervous system is the conduit. It's that antenna that we talk about, right? So our brain is part of our nervous system, like our skull brain is our nervous system. It's connected to our central nervous system, and it's all part of it, right? It's not separate. And and so the more we understand that we are an interconnected, interbeing, relational system, right? The more we really, really understand how deeply relational we are, right? If we are existing within a field of energy and information, and our biology is electrical currents, these cells are producing electricity, right? Like this stuff is happening to keep. That's what life is. We're alive, and then we've got all this electrical stuff going on within our biology at all times. Like, it's really wild when we really think about this, right? Like, if we really break it down to the fact that we are form based on a bunch of cells that are being held together within this field, and it's held together by plasma. Like, this field, this 3D field is basically plasma. So it's like a like gelatin almost texture to it. That's what we're held within. It's just kind of wild when you think about all of this. And then all of this information is being passed through that field, passed through this plasma. It's being shared. All of that to say that within that, we create a frequency, right? There's a current within of energy and information based on what it is that we're experiencing. And so when we're in the frequency of fear, we're sending and receiving a certain measurable energetic current. When we experience that in our body as a signal. But I know we're more than just a biological vessel, right? But we have this vehicle that is an information relational system that we get to move through this field, this life field. This is how we're moving through it, is within this biology. So we get to house this biology And just to kind of tie all this into embodiment, the challenge has been that we're trying to move away from what is uncomfortable, what is alarming, what is painfully producing, right? Like, so we're always trying to move away from those felt experiences that we would connect to that survival system as being negative, right? We're trying to move away from the anxiety. We're trying to move away from the fear. We're trying to move away from anger and rage and the uncomfortable sensations that arise as a result of that. We're trying to move away from despair. We're moving away from grief and sadness. And so, in the trying to move away from it, it's actually alarming our system because we don't know where we're moving towards. Does that make sense? So it's like, and I'm breaking it down to this like nuanced way of understanding it because I'm hoping that it keeps generating more courage for us to actually be with everything that's moving through us instead of moving away from it. So there is an instinct to move away from pain and suffering. Like that's a encoded instinct. The reason being is that pain is a threat that could result in death, right? So there's an instinct for us to move away from pain because that is considered to be a threat neurobiologically, right? Obviously, if a predator is attacking us and there's pain, we know that that could result in death. So, whenever we're experiencing painful emotions, it's instinctive for us to want to move away from those painful emotions. And yet, we're being asked to stay and be with them. So, it's kind of counterintuitive in that regard. So, embodiment is that we are experiencing the felt experience of those signals that our nervous system, our personal surveillance system, is picking up. It's attuning to it. And it's picking up those signals as cues, either dangerous or safe. And the cues are in the outer environment, and the cues are in our inner environment, right? So we're navigating simultaneously an outer environment and an inner environment. And dual awareness is being able to hold both. I'm experiencing the outer environment. Simultaneously, I'm observing what's happening within my inner environment. I'm observing my thoughts. I'm observing my sensations. I'm observing my emotions. I'm observing my um, images, memories, right? I'm observing all of it. When we're in that state where we're observing everything, so I'm observing what's happening here, I'm observing what's happening out there. There's no obvious threat out here. So what is the cue that I'm picking up on? It's an inner cue. Now that's where we say the mind can't differentiate between this outer world and this inner world. There's no separation. So most of our suffering, most of our struggle is generated from the inner world. And then that gets projected externally. External suffering generated externally often happens relationally, right? The threat isn't the tiger in the woods anymore, right? But the threats that we're experiencing on a massive scale externally are relational. This is where most of our pain is coming from. And that's because although, or I don't know if although is the right word, but we have this surveillance system that's scanning for the threat to our organism, will this organism die? Because life is motivated to live. Life itself is motivated to live. It wants to survive. The acorn wants to sprout. Every living thing wants to survive and evolve and come into its fullest expression of life, just be totally connected and expressed in its fullness as a living organism. That's kind of what's encoded within life. And then the other layer of that is, because we're inherently relational, the other threat to our system, to the organism, is disconnection, separation. So on one hand, spiritually, we know, there's this idea that we're all interconnected, we're never separate, we're all one. If we look at it through the field of energy, right? If we break it down to that, we know there's no separation, right? We can kind of see the truth in that. We can be like, okay, yes, on a micro scale, on a cellular level, it makes sense that we're all one, interconnected in one big soup, one big field of energy and information. Therefore, I can never be separate. I've never been separate. All of that spiritually makes sense. But if we can't bring it into our body as a knowing, then we're spiritually bypassing, right? Or we're just in the construct of it. We're just in the thought of it, which is kind of what you're talking about earlier, Kaylee, about like bringing in this information and starting to feel something, the aha moment of feeling something. And so we might know that in actuality, we've never been separated, but that doesn't mean that we don't feel that in our body. Or I should say, it doesn't mean that we can feel that in our body, but rather what we feel most often is severe separation and disconnection. And that is so alarming to the nervous system. That is neuroceived as a huge threat. So these moments of ruptures and separation are gutting to our attachment system, which is part of our survival system. So the reason why our greatest challenge is to remain, let's say, in the ventral vagal state where we're open, happy, connected, compassionate, empathetic, trusting, all relief, all these things that we're talking about, which exist when we're in that state of the ventral vagal pathway. I'm just linking it to the nervous system so we can expand and bring it back into the body. It's so vulnerable. It's so risky. Because at any moment, we're risking the pain of disconnection, the pain of losing those attachments. And this is why we do all the things that we do behaviorally to distance ourselves, to buffer ourselves, to defend ourselves, to protect ourselves, to perform properly, so that we can somehow manage and control those connections, so that we don't have to suffer in the pain of disconnection. So this is what we're doing all the time. We just get really distracted by the stories that we're telling ourselves, whether it's the story of what's happening out there or the story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves in here. Most often we're in the story of it all because the mind thinks, if I can figure out the story of it all, I can maybe fix this. Right? But what's actually happening is we're in life navigating what it means to be a relational being in an environment that is very fractured, right? If we think about it, our cultural relational environments it's very fractured, right? We didn't have the luxury of being born into an intact culture of connection, right? It's been a long time. Way more culture of connection in Mexico, for example, right? And you can feel that. You can feel it, even if it's messy, you can still feel aspects of it, right? Far less of a culture of connection within, United States and Canada and Western Europe, for example. So what's happening is that we have this experience of being a human being in all of its complexity that's deeply interconnected with its environment, with life itself, that we are not separate from that. We have this nervous system that is scanning everything as our personal surveillance system for safety and evolution, right? And we're trying to navigate all of that within a system that's terribly fractured. And the thing that is most fractured within that system is our relationships. Would you agree? So we're suffering because we don't have a map necessarily. There is a blueprint for how to um, be in a coherent state as a relational being. There is a blueprint, meaning it is woven into our DNA. We know, if we get out of the way, we know that we'll be able to attune to that and kind of restore this sort of state of homeostasis and coherence, which ultimately is a state of love, because love is a coherent frequency. And so that's how we can say that the frequency of life is the frequency of love. So we're trying to attune to that, but because we're having these other experiences that are connected to our survival system, it's getting in the way of us being able to enter into that state of coherent frequency, a state of coherent flow of energy and information that gives rise to a harmonious state of being, which in that state, our heart is open and we can connect relationally. Ultimately, that's what we're striving towards because of the pain that we feel when we don't have it. When we don't have access to that state, we're mobilized, we're alarmed, we're mobilized towards wanting to go back to what we know is actually the natural state of being as a living being, to enter into that state. All of that to say that we can't access it if we're not in our bodies. Because it's not a mental game. It's not a I think I'm in love, or I think I love, or I think I'm happy, or right? It's like it's not something that we're just playing out as a movie in our head trying to figure out all the pieces. It has to drop into the body through the nervous system, which is a feeling system. We feel it in our body. All of that to say that the work that we're doing here is twofold. One is to build enough trust and confidence and capacity in the process of being with what we're experiencing moment to moment. So being with the tension, being with the resistance, being with the fear, being with the grief, being with the anger, right? Being with it. So learning how to actually feel it without attaching a story to it. In other words, if we're in fear, we also have a story of fear. So what is actually happening, right? Am I in an instinctive state of fear that's appropriate based on its environment, right? Or am I inducing a state of fear because I'm believing a really stressful thought about myself or about others? So in the being with the feelings, we're also being with what it is that we're telling ourselves about the situation. So we're hearing the narrative and the story. And we're just trying to create enough space from all of that so that we're not fused with it. Because that's when we have power to do something. That's what agency is. And we have power to do something about it. So we're trying to learn how to be with everything because we weren't taught this. Most of us were raised in environments where we were told not to be in those states, where we got separated for being in those states, where we were no longer loved, where we were punished, where we were told to be quiet, be a good girl, stop crying, right? Don't be angry, manage, right? Don't feel too much. Don't be overwhelmed by your reactive body, you know, because I don't know how to be with you when you're in that state. So now I have separation. And that separation from our primary caregivers and the people we love is so painful that we will do everything we can to control, try to protect ourselves, buffer ourselves from being with what's actually arising within our embodied system. So we've been at war with our body, our embodied system, for a very long time. We've been fighting it. And we've got all these things that we do to try to get out of it. So now we're being asked to come back to it, to befriend it, to stay with it, to ride the wave of what we're experiencing and not attach a story that something's wrong. Something's wrong with me, something's wrong with this, something bad is going to happen. It means this about me, and then we go down the narrative spiral. And then simultaneously, we're being asked to generate a felt sense in our embodied system of something that we haven't maybe even experienced yet, right? That's the whole Dispenza model, right? That's the whole quantum mechanics model of things. Like we're setting something in motion, we're setting a possibility in motion, we're generating the felt experience of it before it's even happened, and we're trusting in that process. So we're being asked to do like really big work and almost like contradicting work. Go deep into the feeling, don't get attached to it, but then at the same time, generate a feeling of a state that you want to be in, that you want to be existing in, that you want to rest into ahead of time. So when we understand that, which to me is really a path of awakening, when we understand that, we can be met with collapse. Like, no, I don't want to work that hard. Right? Like, fuck that. It's like, that's way too much. So I'm just going to fall back asleep. So what happens when we fall back asleep is that our programs run the show. That's it. We go into autopilot. We've got all the programs, right? Because those were downloaded in utero, right? They were informed by our primary environment. So we've got this coding like a computer, and it'll run. It'll generate the movies. It'll take care of all of your organs and your heartbeats, and it'll make sure that your human body is staying alive. It'll just it'll take care of all of that. But it also has the imprints and programs, so it'll take care of your mind and your thinking. It will make sure that you're just making it through the day. You're going to do the same thing in the same ways. You're going to think about the same thing related to the way you've been triggered that day, and it's just kind of is on repeat. So when we fall back asleep, we're in Groundhog Day. Our brain wants to rest there. Like our brain doesn't want to have to work this hard. And this is kind of like a concept that I really started to understand when I was talking with Eugenia about attachment and culture, and this idea that culture is supposed to take care of your attachment needs, without you ever thinking about your attachment needs. So, as children, as babies, our attachment needs are supposed to just be met for us. And then we just rest into the attachment. There's safety there. And then in the resting into that attachment, because it's just there and it's healthy, let's just say it's there, it's healthy, it's intact, we grow, we develop, we play, we're creative, we're expressive, we're expansive. We know we belong, we know we inherently belong. We feel that sense of rootedness within the environment, within the culture that's taking care of us. And that actually develops, helps us grow, evolve, develop, and be able to access qualities of the being human that we don't always access when we're in survival stress, right? Creativity, obviously being able to like dream and take risks and think. And we just know fundamentally that we're loved, we belong, we're delighted in, we're celebrated, we're encouraged to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. Right. And then we live from that place fundamentally. So that's like what it feels like when our attachment needs are met and we can just rest in that knowing. So we're not fighting for attachment. We're not controlling or in pursuit of it like we're hungry and we got to take control of it. There's just a knowing that we can rest in our attachments, which is really beautiful. So all of that to say, and I'll wrap it up here because now I'm losing wherever I'm going. I have no idea where I'm going. All of that to say that we're doing both at the same time. We're going deep into the moment to moment experience that we're having, observing it, being with it, noticing when we're running away from it, noticing when we're constricting, resisting, afraid, don't want it, all of those things, like we want to have a temper tantrum, noticing that, staying with it. And at the same time, moments later, we're moving towards, this state that we want to be in. And we're talking about most often what's behind all of it is relief, rest, right? Freedom. That's what we would really call freedom. That what are we freeing ourselves from? We're freeing ourselves from our struggles. We're freeing ourselves from being at war with our biology. We're freeing ourselves with being at war with relationships. We're freeing ourselves with being stuck in chronic survival stress. There are certain things we might not be able to free ourselves from. There are really shitty things that happen on this planet and have been happening on this planet for as far as we can go back. Horrendous. So we're being asked to do something incredibly radical, knowing that shit does happen. And right? Painful, oppressive, bad shit happens. And we're being asked to do it anyways. We're being asked to open our heart anyways. We're being asked to be in pursuit of love and freedom and awakening and, resting in that state relationally, even in the face of all the suffering, our own suffering and the collective suffering. That's a big ask. So all that to say that, we're here doing it and we're collectively holding that for each other. And then, it's normal to keep falling asleep to it all. It's like going to the gym and getting tired because you just lifted weights and you're new at it, right? It's like, it's normal to just be like, oh, can I just go on autopilot? Because our system is programmed for autopilot. So it's like, can't I just shut my eyes again? I don't want to do this work. And that's why it's a daily choice. It's a daily choice, a moment to moment choice as to like, where do I want to put my energy and attention? And what does it mean to rest in this generous moment? What does that mean, generous? Why is this moment generous? Because if we live in a field that is a field and a frequency of love, which we can measure as a currency, as a current and a currency, that's generous. That field is generous. And, you know, Kaylee, you're coming into this aha moment, and I'm coming into an aha moment of like getting the qualitative texture almost in my own embodied system of the truth of that. This truth that it's literally there always. Like it's not out there. It's not something I'm searching for. It's not something we're searching for. Like it's not that it's something I have to collect. It's like it's the thing that I'm actually in. It's the river I'm in. I've just forgotten. Like we're in this river, this wave that is held in what we call love. We've just put a word to it. But it is a coherent wave at a certain frequency. And it's like when we open to that, which requires that we open our hearts, which is a really brave thing for us to do, because our hearts get closed because of all of the relational wounding, the pain associated with that. So as we're opening our hearts and resting in this field that is already here, it's in you, it's of you, it's in your cells, it's in all of our cells. We're sharing it. We're not separate from it. How do you open to it, right? And rest into it. That's why, the Joe Dispenza material, which is just really accessible in my opinion, is saying we got to go into a non-ordinary state. We got to go into a meditative state. We got to do this practice that actually shifts our brain waves, slows it down so we can open up and attune to that frequency. That's why we're being asked to do that work, because then from there, we can actually get a glimpse of it and we can start to set things in motion. And setting that stuff in motion makes it more not viable, likely, makes it more likely that we're going to start to experience more of this state that we're desiring to experience. And so in all of that, I'm coming to understand that like healing, like really radical healing, like not just having relief from anxious symptoms or depressive symptoms, but actually qualitatively evolving and healing, is about accessing love. That love is love, the energy of love, not the concept of love, the energy of love is healing energy. And when you're in that state, the other stuff can't exist, which is making me really question, like, all of the things that we do as humans, like all the therapies that we do, everything, right? We're all just in this struggle together and we're trying to get out of this struggle, right? And it's like, well, try this, try that, try this, try that. But like, what if the whole focus is, can we open our hearts even more? What do we need to do to just keep opening that heart? Let's just open that heart. How do we, let's just open it to this field, to this generous field. And then what happens? So we're not psychologically pushing for something. We're actually practicing resting in our embodied system and opening to a field that's already there. That really is the crux of what this program is, for us to hold each other in that.